Over the weekend, TotallyNotMark released his first video where he will be covering every story arc of Bleach, starting with the substitute Shinigami Arc. In the past, he's covered series like One Piece and Naruto, and ordinarily it would make sense for him to cover the last of the big three, Bleach. But he had prefaced the video with his concern about a passionate and toxic subset of fans who were questioning Mark's motives behind why he was doing these reviews. I mean, from their perspective, Bleach is now the new hot thing, the anime is around the corner, and it would make sense for Mark to capitalize on the return of the anime with a review series covering the entire manga. I feel like we should give everybody a fair chance, and even before Mark had dropped his first video, people were complaining online about what his true intentions were. Recently, Bleach fans have been getting a lot of stick for being very defensive and protective over their series. And if, like TotallyNotMark, you've not been a fan of Bleach for the last 10 or 15 years, then it will seem like the fans are behaving very irrationally and are not able to take any form of constructive criticism. In this video, I want to actually talk about the hate that Bleach has received, as well as some of the worst takes about the series, and why despite all of this, I don't condone or justify any Bleach fan who intends on bringing other people down just because they want to check out Bleach. If you've been following TotallyNotMark, then you'll know that he was bound to cover Bleach at some point or another. Like I had mentioned earlier, he had covered One Piece in 2020, Naruto in 2021, so it makes sense for him to cover the last of the big three, Bleach, as he begins his review of the series in September of 2022. Mark's feelings about Bleach before going into his video review series are well documented online. If you follow him on Twitter, then you'll know that on several occasions he's talked about having seen the first 35 episodes of Bleach 10 years ago, and he didn't enjoy his experience via the anime. He states here that he doesn't think that anyone, including himself, wants to see that review. This was in 2021. In 2020, he states that he's seen the first 35 episodes of Bleach and it wasn't for him. As for other anime, he's definitely open to it, but for right now, he's just covering One Piece. In May of 2022, he clarifies that he's watched 35 episodes of Bleach like 10 years ago, couldn't get into it, and he doesn't think that people would enjoy watching a review series about a series that they enjoy, but Mark didn't actually enjoy it too. Mark has prefaced here that he's experienced Bleach via the anime. He's never given the manga a shot. So after announcing that he was covering Bleach, he clarifies that he's watched it 10 years ago, he's watched 30 to 35 episodes, he couldn't get into it, and he's giving it another chance. I mean, the entire video is titled Bleach: A Second Chance, Substitute Shinigami Arc. He gives an example from before that he's watched JoJo's Bizarre Adventure like 7 years ago via the anime. He didn't enjoy it, but he came to enjoy it via the manga. And secondly, Mark had watched Bleach when he was 21 and he's not that same person anymore. And he may well actually have a different experience to the series via the manga. This was all in response to Bleach fans who were questioning Mark's motives. Is he just hopping onto the bandwagon after years of hating on Bleach? Or does he genuinely want to give the series a second chance? Personally, I reserve to make any comment until I'd seen his first review. It's no secret that I've watched all of Mark's One Piece reviews, Naruto reviews, and I've been subscribed to him since 2017. His Anatomy of Anime videos were the inspiration for my Bleach character analysis videos, so I was always confident that Mark was going to give Bleach a fair shot. If he had any criticisms for the series, he would actually give logical arguments for them, and he would go into the review of the series completely blind, not knowing about any of the history of the hate that Bleach has received, and not having been spoiled on any of the key plot points. I wasn't concerned on Mark criticizing Bleach because, like I've said, every time that he gives criticism, he backs it up with a logical argument. I'm not somebody who loves Bleach to the extent where I cannot see its flaws. Bleach is just one series of many that I'm passionate about. When it comes to Tite Kubo's work, I love the majority of it, but it has to be said that it has flaws when it comes to the wasted potential of several characters. I would have loved to have seen more of Ichigo's friends from Karakura Town, because I feel like characters like Tatsuki just weren't expanded upon when there were clear hints of her wanting to be involved with Ichigo and the others. Other characters like Chad and Orihime could have had more of a role within the story, especially Chad, and additionally the story towards the end really felt like it was being rushed. And another key character who I feel like had a lot of wasted potential was Ukitake, and not to mention the entire debacle surrounding the Zero Division. And it's no secret that we all know that the final few chapters of Bleach were rushed. Heck, I'd even said that the second half of the 1000-Year Blood War arc was rushed. See, I say all of this full well knowing what Kubo was experiencing during the serialization of Bleach. This is an interview that Kubo conducted in 2017 for the 50th anniversary of Shonen Jump. Here it says that Kubo dislikes being compared to others, and he continued with the serialization completely unaffected by popularity surveys. So he didn't care about what the fans had thought about which character was popular or which Zanpakuto was popular. He had just written the story in the way that he had wanted to. However, when it came to the 10th year of serialization, he had entered a period of poor health. So the 10th year of serialization was in 2011. This was towards the end of the Fate Karakura Town arc going into the Fullbring arc. He talks about how he was going through a rough patch for a while afterwards, and it was some years before that Kishimoto, the creator of Naruto, had told him that once you get past 35 your stamina drops like crazy, and Kubo had found that he was totally right. When he had hit the age of 35, his health had started to catch up to him after years of weekly serialization. During those last few years of writing and drawing Bleach, Kubo talks about how he would have a cold and he would be in bed for 6 hours, and even after 2 days rest he wouldn't feel better, and because of his health he had become late with submitting his chapter drafts. This had happened several times and it was too much for him. Weekly Shonen Jump is incredibly intense, and to submit 20 pages a week for years on end is even more difficult to accomplish. If you have read the series Bakuman, then you will know about how difficult it is to even get serialized within Weekly Shonen Jump, and how this difficulty is magnified once you are serialized, and have the pressure of cancellation constantly looming over your head until you establish the popularity of your series. This is why Kubo was so conflicted when he had started to become late with submitting his chapter drafts, and how several times it was too much for him, because he's a weekly mangaka and it is his job to be published every week. Especially when he is competing with other mangaka who are being published weekly, it was difficult for him to think about taking a break, and it was really hard on him mentally because he had started to feel like he was a failure as a manga artist. His only salvation came in the form of fan letters during those final few years of Bleach's serialization. Those letters had really helped him, and they had made him have an understanding of how precious letters are from fans. During the 15th year of Bleach's weekly serialization, the series had come to an end, and Kubo talks about how he had crammed a lot of plot points within the second half of the 1000-year Blood War arc, including Hitsugaya's adult form, and because of that he feels like the ending of Bleach had a lot of energy to it. For us as the readers, we had felt like a lot of it was rushed and just crammed in, but from reading this we can understand what Kubo was actually experiencing at the time. The first thing that Kubo had noticed after Bleach had ended was how sick he had actually felt. He had thought that he could finally take a break, but something was wrong. He went to the hospital and it turned out that he had a torn shoulder tendon. In other interviews, it is well documented that for the final year of serialization of Bleach, Kubo had drawn the manga with this torn shoulder tendon. But despite this being such a big issue, Kubo had still felt that there was something else that was wrong, and something that didn't feel right. He had spent years without feeling like this, but after Bleach had ended, he had realized what the cause of his concern was. He admits that he had started to feel lonely, because when Bleach was running, he had so much time to think about all of these characters that he had created. He had spent days with all of these people inside of his head, thinking about how they would act, how they would behave, their personalities, their powers, and their role within the story. But after Bleach had ended, he had stopped thinking about all of the characters within his world, and he had struggled to actually think about how to spend his time. And it wasn't that his health was bad after Bleach had ended, it was more so that he was lonely, and it was because of his loneliness that he had decided to draw manga again. This had resulted in his Burn the Witch one-shot, and eventually in the return of Bleach through the New Breeds from Hell chapter. I mean, just from reading these short snippets from this interview with Kubo, you can truly appreciate how much Kubo has invested of his life into his series. So it's all well and fine for us to criticize Bleach and to say that the ending was rushed, but ultimately there was a real human behind that story, somebody who was struggling to keep up with the pressure of weekly serialization. And despite all of this, he had still tried his best and delivered to his fans one chapter per week until the ending of his story. And regardless of what anyone can say about the end of the 1000-year Blood War arc, he had still drawn the epilogue of Bleach exactly how he had imagined from when he had first started Bleach as a story in 2001. This is why I respect TotallyNotMark for actually giving Bleach a second chance, but through its original source material, the manga. If you know me and you follow my channel, then you'll know that I don't really like the Bleach anime. It's not that it isn't good, it's just that it isn't very faithful when it comes to adapting Kubo's work into animated form. That 2004 anime does an excellent job with the music, with the voice acting, and when it is adapting canon material, some of it is truly flawless. Like Grimmjow vs Ichigo's final battle is some of my favorite moments within anime, but it's a fact that over 50% of the Bleach anime is filler. It's a fact that they were pushing these filler scenes between Ichigo and Rukia, especially during the Memories in the Rain short story arc, and the fact that TotallyNotMark didn't enjoy the first 30 to 35 episodes of the anime, but after reviewing Bleach via its first 70 chapters, he's actually started to enjoy it and has a different experience of it, goes to show that Bleach in its manga form is superior to the anime. When it comes to my experience of Bleach, I'd first started watching the anime in late 2006 via the dub. I'd watched the anime all the way up until 2012 12 when it had ended with the Fullbring arc. Then I had continued my journey with Bleach via the manga, but I felt like reading the manga via fan translations just wasn't the optimum way of experiencing the series. There were a lot of mistranslations and sometimes the chapters just didn't make sense to me. So it wasn't until 2016 when I had actually bought all of the Bleach volumes and I had read it from start to finish via Viz's manga translations. While they aren't perfect, they were a better way for me to experience the series, and I had a newfound appreciation for it. When I'd first watched the anime, I had no idea what on earth all of Ichigo's different training scenes meant. I didn't know that there were 2 Hokyoku, and I'd struggled to understand the nuance of Ichigo's character via the anime. Maybe this was because the anime was just chopping and changing between canon and filler material for so long. Kubo has clarified in several interviews that Bleach is centered around Ichigo's story, so it's for this reason that a lot of the plot points relating to the lore of the world are not included within the manga. Like some of the information that we find within Can't Fear Your Own World is all lore about the Bleach world that Kubo had related to the author of Can't Fear Your Own World, Ryogo Narita. Those light novels I consider to be canon, since Kubo was involved with the writing of those light novels, and all of the concepts within there are actually from Kubo. We learn about the origin of the Bleach world, we learn about the mystery of the Soul King, we learn about the intentions of Ichibei, and I feel like this is another one of my criticisms about Bleach, is that a lot of the lore and a lot of the history surrounding the Bleach world isn't included within the manga. But then again, it is a story about the protagonist Ichigo, and what relevance does all of that have to Ichigo's desire to protect others, since that's the reason why we are following Bleach. I do hope that with Kubo expanding upon the Bleach story with these one-shot chapters, we have more of a focus on the other characters. Like Can't Fear Your Own World was centered around Shuhei Hisagi, and it gave us a really great opportunity to delve into the lore of Bleach. I say all of this to clarify that yeah, I have issues with Bleach, in the same way that I have issues with One Piece, Naruto, and Dragon Ball. And I don't have any problems with people who want to give Bleach a second chance. If they've experienced it via the anime and they want to try out the manga, yeah, then fair enough, yeah, try it out. Even Eyepatchwolf, who was known for spreading misinformation via his original Fall of Bleach video, had commented on Mark covering Bleach, as he says that there is a lot to love about Bleach. And he thinks that at its best, it can go toe-to-toe with any other series, and while for him it did fall off after a certain point, he is still really glad that he had read it, and Kubo's illustrations and styles are unparalleled in shonen. He also recommends checking out some of the anime scenes, as its best episodes of crazy production and some of the direction and soundtrack give it an amazing atmosphere. Yeah, Eyepatchwolf is totally right, some of the episodes are really good, especially during the Fullbring arc, and you can see that the animators have a solid passion for the material, especially when they are covering the canon stuff. But fans of Bleach even had issue with Eyepatchwolf even commenting this, and I feel like it's a mixture of Bleach fans having become jaded and fans becoming really protective and defensive over this series, but I feel like it's a result of fans having experienced years of misinformation being spread about the series, people unjustly hating on it, and Bleach fans feeling victimized for enjoying a series that the majority of the anime community suddenly just started to hate for some reason. I don't think there was anything wrong with Eyepatchwolf saying what he had said here. If you follow his videos, then you know that he owned up to the mistakes that he had made within the Fall of Bleach video, and his second video titled The Fall of Bleach 4 years later, he just gives his honest opinion about what he had thought about Bleach after rereading the manga. He talks about his points where he praises Kubo's work, but then he goes on to criticize the series, and I responded to both of Eyepatchwolf's videos in a respectful manner. I'm not telling Bleach fans how to think or behave, but I don't think that there is anything wrong with what Eyepatchwolf has said here. We have to accept that not everyone's going to enjoy Bleach, and that's totally fine. We don't have to tear down Eyepatchwolf just to prove a point. In my Ruined Reputation video, I tried to counter a lot of Eyepatchwolf's points with evidence or points from the actual manga. Where he had talked about Bleach's art declining, I showed him Kubo's excellent work where he had drawn amazing backgrounds. I explained the purpose behind the white in Kubo's paneling, how he draws emphasis to the motion and actions of characters by utilizing the white in the manga panels. And I was impressed that Mark had picked up on this during his review, where he had praised Kubo's paneling and his stylistic choices, drawing parallels between how Toriyama incorporates white space within his manga panels to how Kubo does so too, drawing emphasis on the action or the mood of characters. So yeah, Bleach fans were upset to see Eyepatchwolf commenting and praising on Bleach after apparently having slandered the series in his Fall of Bleach video. That video is no longer online, he's owned up to his mistakes, so I don't think it's fair to actually antagonize Eyepatchwolf. I'd said that Bleach fans have become jaded and very defensive and protective over the series. Now I don't want to justify some of their actions because I don't think you can justify anyone tearing someone else down. But there's a lot of history behind being a Bleach fan online, especially during the last 10 years. I got into the series in late 2006, so I've seen all of the different stages of the fandom evolve. There was so much praise and love for the series right after the Soul Society arc. People were really enjoying the Arrancar portion of the story. There was so much appreciation and love for Aizen as a villain. But things had started to change in 2010-2011 when a lot of memes had started to come out about Aizen having planned everything all along, and how Aizen was just portrayed as a character who had planned everything out all along and nothing could surprise him. People were even saying that Kubo was trolling the fandom through how he was writing Aizen as a character. But this is probably because of how everybody was interpreting Aizen's motives and his role within the story, because admittedly Aizen is a mischievous trickster. He is similar to a Loki type of character, and it's for this reason that I think that he didn't achieve much within the story, because I feel like he had enjoyed tormenting and tricking others that he had lost sight of his goal at some points within the story. Now, while he did fuse with the Hokyoku and had made plans to actually go into the Soul King's palace, he didn't accomplish anywhere near as much as Yhwach and the Quincy's did during the Thousand Year Blood War arc. But this is just all flaws that Kubo has written into Aizen's character. But yeah, it was because of Aizen's deceptive and mischievous ways that people had started to criticize how he was written. And then things just started to spiral after 2011 with the release of the Fullbring arc, which before that had almost, I think, 2 whole filler arcs within the anime before we even got to the Fullbring arc. And I definitely think there's a group of Bleach fans who confuse canon material with filler material because they've only experienced Bleach via the anime. And I feel like it's such a shame because the manga does such a great job with pacing. The story takes you from one exciting arc to the next, without any of these filler breaks in between. I mean, some of these filler arcs lasted for a year, year and a half, 2 years, where you're constantly dropping and picking back up the canon material. It makes sense why people were confused with some of the plot points. I totally understand why I didn't know that there were 2 Hokyokus. Via the anime, if you were watching it weekly, it was hard to follow Kubo's canon story that was within the manga. I think all of this came to a head after the Bleach anime had ended with the Fullbring arc. A lot of people were left feeling, I don't know, disappointed by the series, I guess. Assumptions were made about the anime having been cancelled because of the drop in the quality, but can a lot of the Bleach anime fans distinguish what was filler and what was canon? Even the anime staff had admitted that the filler material just wasn't on par with the actual canon material of the manga. The director of the 2004 Bleach anime had admitted that those early Bleach filler arcs were just not on par with the canon material, and he even admits that he's disappointed by some of the filler material that was included in the anime. So it's not surprising that fans who had experienced Bleach just from the anime had started to dislike it over time. It didn't help things when the Thousand Year Blood War arc had started off so strong, but had ended on quite a weak note, with so many rushed plot points and fights at the end, and so much occurring off screen. By the time 2016 rolled around, it was pretty acceptable to hate on Bleach. But Eyepatchwolf's video had made it even more easier to do so, when he had spread a lot of misinformation about the manga and the anime having been cancelled, how Kubo's artwork had declined over time, how the popularity of Bleach had declined when it really didn't, how the sales of Bleach had declined also. I cover all of the points that Eyepatchwolf had made in his Fall of Bleach video, in my Ruined Reputation video, and in my response to his Fall of Bleach 4 years later video. So I definitely recommend that you check those videos out to see a proper counter argument to all of Eyepatchwolf's remarks. In those videos, like I've said, I try to be respectful, but a lot of people online, after constantly hearing this misinformation from Eyepatchwolf's videos, had started to become really defensive and, I don't know, I guess toxic in their response to Bleach haters. Like TotallyNotMark says, there's no excuse for behaving in a toxic or vitriolic manner. He had ended his recent Bleach review with a very well delivered message on respecting each other when it comes to online discourse of any kind, and genuinely it isn't fun to tear anyone down. So when it comes to Bleach fans reacting to anyone criticizing or hating on the series online, I guess the best piece of advice would be not to stoop down to their level. And when new people want to experience Bleach, it's not cool to gatekeep and stop them from watching it or reading it. People were apprehensive about Mark giving Bleach a second chance, but you have to trust that Kubo's work will stand on its own merit. We don't need to constantly back up and defend the series. If Mark wants to give the series a second chance via the source material, I feel like Kubo's work will speak for itself. The manga will highlight the strengths of Bleach as a story as well as the weaknesses, because Bleach does have weaknesses, and that's fine to have. I mean, you can criticize Bleach, just with logical arguments that make sense, and as long as you preface it with your opinion opinion, because a lot of what Eyepatchwolf had said in those Fall of Bleach videos was like he was spreading his opinion out as a fact. Like it was a fact that Bleach was cancelled. It's a fact that Bleach's popularity declined. It's a fact that Bleach's art has got worse over time. Art in itself is subjective, and all of these things that Eyepatchwolf had said were his opinion about Bleach. None of them are fact, and a lot of the anime community had latched onto these takes as fact. So yeah, it's not cool to tear anyone down, and don't gatekeep Bleach from people who actually want to experience the series as newcomers. Admittedly, after having watched TotallyNotMark's review on the first arc of Bleach, I did feel relief. I felt relief that he enjoyed the series, but I guess that's after years of this negativity that spread about Bleach. It's kind of refreshing to hear somebody praise the series for its strengths and for the things that I find enjoyable within it. Now, I don't have any doubt that he is going to criticize Bleach, especially during the later portions of the story. There are going to be points that Mark doesn't like about the series that I love. My issue is with the anime community who latch onto the opinion of a YouTuber as a fact. I mean, recently I bumped into an old friend that I hadn't spoken to in about 10 years, and I told him that I have a YouTube channel where I mostly cover Bleach, and they started to tell me about their experience of Bleach, saying that they feel like the story fell off after the Soul Society arc, and in his opinion, it was never really good as the peaks that he had experienced within the Soul Society arc. I don't have any problem with him saying that, that's totally okay, but then he started to spout out points from the Fall of Bleach video. I mean, he started talking about how the sales had declined, the anime was cancelled, started talking about the art quality dwindling over time, and then I just responded by telling him, bro, that's not you speaking right now. I told him, like, I feel like I'm hearing Super Eyepatchwolf, and then he admitted that a lot of the points that he was saying was from Super Eyepatchwolf's video. This is somebody who had dropped Bleach before the end of the anime. They didn't even see the Fullbrink arc. They had stopped watching or experiencing Bleach after the fake Karakura Town arc. A lot of people who got into Bleach via the anime didn't have the best experience of the series, and I feel like they justified the dislike for the series with opinions from Super Eyepatchwolf because they probably couldn't pinpoint what they disliked about it. So using the points from Eyepatchwolf's videos or other YouTubers' videos, they've sewn together this argument that Bleach had declined and Bleach just wasn't good, just to justify, I guess, their own opinion. But it happened so much so that this opinion had started to kind of spread out as a fact. And this is why fans of Bleach who have experienced the series through the manga defend it so passionately online. Again, there's no reason to be toxic, it's just Bleach fans are very defensive and very protective over the series. And this is why they had questioned TotallyNotMark's motives behind doing the review series so close to the release of the anime. So there's a group of people online, a small minority, who are reacting to TotallyNotMark's video on Bleach with disappointment that he enjoyed the first story arc. This is after he had talked about the negativity coming from Bleach fans, how we're kind of gatekeeping, even his message at the end where he had talked about the anime fandoms having to respect each other instead of tearing each other down. Somebody says that they've only seen a positive response to Mark's video. There is of course hate for everything if you try looking for it. I responded by saying there's a lot of people commenting some stuff that's grinding on my gears. I understand constructive, well thought out criticism, but I'm seeing people who are disappointed because TotallyNotMark had enjoyed the first story arc of Bleach. I mean, just checking out the comments, there's a lot of people who enjoyed Bleach but they never got to finish it. The filler arcs coming in the middle of every main arc was just terrible. That's totally backing up what I've said about people experiencing Bleach via the anime and the filler arcs having ruined that experience for them. Some of the comments are people who are saying that Bleach is the weakest of the big three. There's this one person saying that they've never understood how fans can be so vitriolic and toxic. People like different shit. There's another person who's commenting on the passion that Bleach fans actually have for the series, as he states that he's never experienced the fans being aggressive before. It's just that for so long Bleach has been the laughingstock of the big three, and it was always regarded as the worst one. Despite this, it still has its hardcore fans, him included, and he goes on to say that he just gets tired of hearing people talk ill and disregarding the entire thing that he loves so much. He's even apologizing for Mark having bad experiences with the fans of Bleach online. Another person in the comments says that he thinks that Bleach fans are so protective of the franchise because we were easily outcast for many years until the announcement of the return of the anime. Bleach was a series that people loved to crap all over, and being a die-hard fan of the show was pretty much like having your own taste attacked. It's interesting to see so many people praising Bleach now that there's a resurgence. And yeah, this is just another reason fans are questioning the motives behind why people are enjoying the series now all of a sudden after years of hating on it. Somebody else comments on the video that in defense of the people who get really defensive of Bleach, I don't think I saw more hate on any show other than Bleach in the early 2010s. Still don't really know why, to be honest. For over 7 years, Bleach fans faced slander towards the story. It made the community gatekeep and be toxic. It's a sad thing, and yeah, it is pretty disappointing. The polarity of views surrounding the series has caused so many fans like myself to be defensive. A big voice can cause so much damage so quickly, and it can take years of the effects for such a thing to go away. I guess this is what it means to have a lot of influence. It comes with a lot of responsibility, because what you say is kind of etched into stone, and if you do spread misinformation, and it may take years to damage control the spread of it. I mean, there's a lot of fans of the series commenting here that they were relieved that Mark had a positive experience of the series. There's people praising Mark as he understands why Kubo doesn't use backgrounds within certain panels of his manga. People are happy to see Mark reviewing it, they're excited for him to cover Kubo's work, and from what I'm reading, people had dropped Bleach usually because of the anime. They had found the adaptation of the manga to be quite boring. Some of the scenes that were within the manga were rushed when it comes to the anime. Ichiruki moments were really forced, especially during the first arc. And despite all of these comments, you have some people commenting like they genuinely didn't realize that the show still had a fan base, always thought that it was common knowledge that it had one good arc and everything else was complete trash. Stuff like this, it's the wider anime community who have this opinion that Bleach dropped after the Soul Society arc, the rest of the story is irrelevant, and it's pretty disappointing that a small vocal minority criticizing Mark for actually enjoying the Substitute Shinigami arc, just because they didn't because of the anime or for whatever reason. Somebody else says that possibly the most mediocre and overrated manga, Kubo cannot write to save his life, but at least his drawings look cool, I guess. That and Shirosagasu's contributions to the anime carry the whole franchise. Again, couldn't disagree more with that. And Kubo as a writer is so often overlooked because there's a lot of nuance within his story. In general, Kubo doesn't spoon feed his story to the audience. I think a lot of people have issue with that. I guess the sentiment is that a lot of fans were cautiously optimistic to see Mark's video, and despite many other series having similar or even more shortcomings than Bleach, Bleach was just aggressively dogged on online and seen in a very negative light. So there was this concern whether if TotallyNotMark will be influenced at all by the negativity spread about Bleach, and if he would really come to the series with fresh eyes and give his honest opinion on it without having been influenced by anyone else in the anime sphere. From his first video, it's evident that he's giving his opinion and he's not letting anyone else influence him at all. Someone else comments that watching new people get into Bleach and praising the first arc always makes him feel sad because this is it. This is where the series peaked. The first arc is great and it's pretty much all downhill from here. Narratively, artistically, creatively, it all starts declining from the exact point the next arc commences. It's such a shame. I think this is somebody who's spouting the opinion of TBZimran, where he made that video about Bleach losing its theme after the Substitute Shinigami arc and tried to say that Bleach fell off after the first story arc. I responded to this in my Dear Bleach Haters video, and I talked about how some people think Bleach declined after the Soul Society arc, some people think it declined after Aizen was defeated, some people like TBZimran think that Bleach had declined after the Substitute Shinigami arc. And again, this comment is somebody else spouting out an opinion that a YouTuber has spread as fact. Somebody's commented, amazing, every word of what you said was wrong. I mean, it's alright, I mean, if this is your opinion, fair enough, but I'm just saying that there's a striking similarity and a parallel to TBZimran's video. I responded to TBZimran's video, and as a result, I got blocked. And that was me just giving constructive criticism on his video on why I disagreed with it. And that's what happens when you respond to people who are spreading misinformation about the series online. But yeah, moving on back to Mark's comments, there's a lot of people who disagree with his pronunciation of some of the words. I did tell him about how to pronounce Kisuke. He doesn't keep saying Kisuke. There's somebody saying that you're only doing this because the Bleach anime is returning, dude. Using people's hype to get views, rest in peace. The thing is, even if he is doing it close to the release of the anime, TotallyNotMark has a large community of fans who are gonna peep and check out Bleach. I mean, he's not doing anything wrong if he's bringing more attention and eyes to the series. If anything, strategically, it's a very smart decision to make a review series on Bleach just when the popularity is about to peak with the release of the anime. I don't have any issue with Mark releasing the video, even if he released it in October when the first episode airs, but he's done it just before the release of the anime so that fans can actually be reacquainted with the series and kind of re-experience it in a way before the anime actually comes back. And I do respect Mark for actually taking this initiative. He's going to draw more eyes to the series. I know for a fact he's going to convince a lot of people to recheck out the manga before the anime comes out. And I've read several comments of people having been convinced to reread Bleach or to re-experience it from the manga because of TotallyNotMark's video, and it's only been out for less than a couple of days. So yeah, it's not fair to say that he's only doing this just because the anime is returning. He genuinely wants to check out the series, give it a second chance. His first review made this really clear. I really love this comment here. While I agree that the negativity and gatekeeping that seems to be common amongst the louder voices in the Bleach community is extremely foolish and wrong, I find it disingenuous disingenuous to say that it stems from an inability to tolerate criticism. For all of us who have been a part of the anime community long enough to remember a time when nerd culture was uncool and something to be made fun of, you've also been around long enough to know that those of us who called ourselves Bleach fans were treated that way, not just in general, but also from the larger anime community itself. By no means am I saying that this justifies any of their hate, but this is the end result of dealing with a splintered off community that for so many years had to keep their guard up on both sides. Somebody else says that the main reason as to why some of the Bleach fanbase is quite harsh on critics of the series is pretty much since the end of the manga, the net was full of horrible takes of people who didn't even read or watch the series but felt obligated to repeat opinions of a guy on YouTube. And this is exactly what's happening with Bleach and the discourse surrounding the series online. People aren't thinking for themselves and they're spouting out opinions that they've seen from a YouTuber. And this is exactly what had happened when I'd met an old school friend that I hadn't talked to in 10 years. And he had started spouting out opinions about Bleach when he hadn't actually finished the series himself, and they were word for word the exact points that iPotchWolf was making in his Fall of Bleach video. This is another comment where it's clear that the opinions are being taken from Super iPatchWolf. Bleach is a sort point for me. The beginning was amazing, but as the story goes on, the drawings felt more lazy and the story more repetitive and cliche. By the end of it, there wasn't even background behind characters, just blank space. And don't make me talk about the ending. What a wasted manga. Yeah, fine, fair enough. You find that the art had declined over time, the story had become more repetitive. Again, this could just be this individual's opinion, but it's strange when these same points are being brought up repeatedly over and over again, especially after the release of the Fall of Bleach video by Super iPatchWolf. Art in itself is subjective, so what he thinks about Kubo's drawings is his own take. You know, the feeling of the story becoming lazy and repetitive, but I don't know what's repetitive about the Soul Society arc, which is centered around rescuing Rukia, the Arrancar arc, which is centered around Aizen, a false god wanting to take over the Soul King. What's repetitive about the Fullbring arc, where it's centered around Ichigo wanting to regain his powers? What's repetitive about the 1000-Year Blood War arc, centered around the long-standing feud between the Quincy and Shinigami that was introduced as early as the first arc of the manga? For me, I don't see Bleach as a repetitive story. I see that the Hueco Mundo arc had recycled plot lines from the Soul Society arc, but it was purposefully done because it wanted to draw parallels and the differences between the Shinigami and the Arancars. I've talked a lot about the differences between Hueco Mundo and the Soul Society arc in my review of the Hueco Mundo portion of the Arrancar arc. Again, there's more people telling Mark to keep his expectations in check. Bleach is really good in parts. It's really good in parts. It could be good throughout. It's just people who have this negative experience of Bleach who really are expecting Mark to also have this negative view of Bleach. There are some comments where people are genuinely surprised that he enjoyed that first story arc when they were expecting him to dog on it because they had experienced it via the anime, which had rushed through 70 chapters into 20 episodes. So it's understandable why people have issues with the pacing when it comes to the early portions of the Bleach story, because a lot of the style and the nuance that's within the manga just doesn't really translate over into the anime. And you can tell Bleach as a story is best experienced through the medium of manga. That's how the author of the series had intended for us to experience his work. Somebody else says, I honestly don't think that you're going to get much backlash from the fan base by saying that you enjoy early Bleach, but then it kind of just goes downhill after the Soul Society arc. That's pretty much just accepted by the fan base at this point. It's not really accepted by anyone who's really a fan of Bleach. It's accepted by the anime community as a whole, but anyone who calls themselves a Bleach fan does not think that the Bleach series declined after the Soul Society arc. That's entirely an opinion spouted out by YouTubers that's been taken as fact by the anime community. Admittedly, the Soul Society arc is one of the best arcs in all of shonen history, but it doesn't mean that Bleach as a series declined after the Soul Society arc. Now, while even if the Arrancar arc, Fullbring arc, or the 1000-Year Blood War arc don't match up to the level of the Soul Society arc, it doesn't mean that there was a drastic decline. The Arrancar arc introduces us to one of the greatest groups of villains via the Espada. You have excellent characters like Xylopodo, Ukiura, Grimmjow, Noitara, some of the individuals that you really despise, and some who are villains but you actually feel sympathetic towards them, especially during the end of Ichigo's battle against Ukiura, where you sympathize with the character of Ukiura and you're actually upset that he's been defeated and he's going to die, especially after he learns about what it means to have a heart. Bleach is a really poetic and nuanced story, and again, I don't think a lot of it translates into the anime. A lot of people probably think that the Soul Society arc was the peak of Bleach. It was because they had experienced Bleach via the anime and the next arc was the Bount arc. I don't see how you could think that Bleach had declined after the Soul Society arc, especially when during the Arrancar arc where you had the reveal that Ichigo's father is a Shinigami. We learn about the Turn Back the Pendulum arc, which is one of the greatest flashback arcs in all of shonen history, I feel like. You have incredible battles between Ichigo and Grimmjow, Ichigo Ichigo and Ukiura. You have the Vaster Lorde transformation, Ichigo in his Dangai form defeating Aizen. You have the intense emotional return to roots via the Fullbring arc, where Ichigo struggles to regain his powers, and as he reaffirms his desire to protect those that he loves by once again gaining the power to protect, as he realizes what he has lost after he loses his Shinigami powers and no longer has the power to protect those around him, which is the central driving force behind his character. And nobody could convince me that Bleach goes downhill after the Soul Society arc, especially if you've read the first half of the Thousand Year Blood War arc. How Kubo sets up the introduction of the Quincy, how the Soul Society is utterly annihilated, how you feel this tense pressure and concern for the future of the Soul Society. The way that Kubo introduces the entire Thousand Year Blood War arc is masterful in my opinion, and I feel like it goes toe to toe with any of the material within the Soul Society arc. So if you were to ask me, I honestly don't think Bleach declined after the Soul Society arc. If you think that, then I honestly feel like you watched way too much of the Bound arc and it's emotionally scarred you, and that's why you hate Bleach after the Soul Society arc. I mean, you can see people who hate the series are coming out with stuff like uninformed opinions are everywhere. You read the first arc and gained appreciation of the series. Does that qualify you to give direct feedback on the series? No. You've read 70 out of 686 chapters. You can give feedback on the arc, but not the series. I guess this is just honestly such a high level of copium from people who dislike Bleach to such an extent. If TotallyNotMark enjoys the series and you dislike the series and you have an issue with his review series because it isn't affirming your negative opinion of Bleach, then that's a you problem. If you're going into Mark's reviews and you're wanting him to agree with you and you're wanting him to spread negativity about the series, then I don't think that's going to be the case. Like I've said so many times in this video, Mark is only going to criticize Bleach if he has a proper argument for it. He's not going to spout out another YouTuber's opinion or to make you feel better by saying that Bleach was terrible during the start or during this point in the story just because you think it is. I mean, somebody here saying that some of the absolute vitriol that he's seen in the comments of this video, and it's from both ends. He's pleading for people to be respectful of everyone, no matter if they dislike Bleach or enjoy Bleach. And at the end of the day, it's all chill. You don't need to argue with people on the internet over a manga of all things. This one individual says that they're going to finish the video, but before they do, they have to say that Mark may not love Bleach. This individual's aware of the flaws and they've examined Bleach's flaws at their own disgust. But in terms of characters, narrative and overarching character development, it may end up being one of, if not your favorites. Bleach is a bit too good for shonen in the sense that it makes no sense to the average Jump fan because it bounces a bit too much. But when the story is focused, let's just say nothing since Dragon Ball has made me take this many rewatches to understand the overarching, character development and the overarching narrative. I hope that my videos have helped to convey this, that when it comes to Bleach, it may take several rewatches or several rereads of the manga to actually understand what Kubo is doing with the story. In one of the recent interviews of Kubo, it was said that only 0.01% of the foreshadowing within Bleach is picked up on by an average reader of Shonen Jump. So diehard hardcore fans actually know about all the nuance within the story and the subtle foreshadowing that Kubo implements, and now after every time you reread Bleach as a story, you pick up on something new. The story isn't told in a linear manner. Points about characters' backstories are dotted around the manga, like Rangiku's backstory is told in portions within the Soul Society arc, and then we get to learn more stuff within the Fate Karakura-town arc around the time when Gin dies. And it's because the story isn't spoon-fed to you that the average reader of Shonen Jump struggles, I think, to interpret Bleach as a whole, and in general because Ichigo is a very different type of protagonist to Naruto and Luffy, and I am glad that TotallyNotMark has picked up on this so early on in his reviews. I'm looking forward to hearing what he has to say about the series as time goes on, but in regards to people who are expecting Mark to be negative about Bleach just because everybody else has been for the last few years or so, I think you're going to be surprised by Mark's analytical take of the manga. I know that he does cover a lot of material and he only has 1 week to digest all of it and to write a review on it. I feel like the strength of Kubo's work will speak for itself. I'm not going to watch all of his reviews expecting that he's going to love all of the moments of Bleach that I love, but I do know that Mark will be focusing on the overarching development of the characters and how Kubo evolves the narrative of his story, which is something that I don't think that a lot of people who dropped Bleach really did. If Bleach didn't have proper character development, if it didn't have a cohesive narrative, then I don't think I would have been able to create over 200 videos on this channel talking about Bleach as a story. To wrap up this video, what do you think about all of the hate that spread about Bleach online? What are your opinions of TotallyNotMark's new Bleach review series? Do you think that as fans of Bleach, we need to calm down and not be so defensive and protective over the series? Or do you feel like the protectiveness that people have over Bleach is justified after years of having the series dogged on? I would love to read all of your comments and what you think about had Bleach haters expecting Mark to hate Bleach after his positive praise of the Substitute Shinigami arc. I can't wait to hear all of your opinions on what you think about the discourse surrounding Bleach and what you think about the Bleach community being a toxic, negative fanbase. Lastly, thank you for making it to the end of this video, and I can't wait to see you in my next Bleach video.